I've been playing the Total War series for a long time, and last year Creative Assembly decided to make the push for the fantasy world, based in Warhammer lore. It is a very abrupt switch from a historical world to a fantasy universe, and during my playthrough of Total War Warhammer I have noticed some important flaws that I don't see covered by other game reviewers. In a world where reviewing games has become a competition on who can do a review first to get the most precious views and ride the hype train, I come after a year and present you what the matured version of Total War Warhammer is. Even if you are not a gamer, I think you will have something to gain after watching this video, because you will see what the gaming industry has become. Total War Warhammer combines an addictive turn-based campaign of epic empire building with explosive, colossal, real-time battles, all set in the vivid and incredible world of Warhammer fantasy battles. Creative Assembly is right. Sort of. I mean, if you are new to Total War games, you will be having an amazing experience, and you won't really notice the problems, but as a seasoned Total War player who expects innovation and progress, you will be somewhat disappointed. Total War Warhammer did get something right though. The implementation of the Warhammer lore with the Total War mechanics. The various races of the game have various specific technological trees, buildings and economic systems, but most importantly, magic, flying units and monsters work great on the battlefield. The fighting animations have all been fixed and work, I would say, flawlessly. All those errors from Total War Rome 2 have been fixed, and finally the battles really make sense, and that's what kept me playing this game. If not for these epic battles with very diverse units that are well balanced out, I would have not wasted 200 hours in it. Warhammer definitely brings a new shine to the Total War series, and it's welcomed. However, there are some questionable aspects that need to be mentioned. Since I was playing my first Total War games back in 2007 with Medieval 2, I have always had this wonder: what would these games look like in 10 years with the advancements in technology? Would the battles happen at a larger scale? Would we have more complex gameplay and town defenses? And after all this time, when we have significantly powerful computers, what is the answer? Well, the simple answer is no. On the contrary, it even looks like they peeled away some of its previous details, and I'm afraid that they will continue to do so. Instead of an evolution, we just got a graphical reskin, and in some cases the computational power required for an image to appear on our screen is not justified. I mean, look at the campaign map. I see it taking my CPU temperature to 70 degrees, yes, but what do we get in it? A few particle effects? In Rome 2, when I built some buildings in my town, at least something would happen and I would see the town modify. Now, there is nothing. Explain to me what is the great difference between, let's say, a Napoleon Total War campaign map and the one we have now. Well, there probably are, but here is the point that I'm trying to get across. I would rather have less smooth particle effects and more complexity. More stuff happening on the map. The same goes with the battle gameplay. In Medieval 2 Total War, you could see each individual soldier enter the siege tower, climb it, and land on the walls. In Total War Warhammer, this process is completely messed. In other Total War games, you would see different formations for cavalry and infantry units. You could make all kinds of formations that would offer you an advantage on the battlefield, if you know how to use them. Now, there is only one stance you can be in. Even as spears, there is no defense stance button. The logics now are that if you're not moving, you are already in defense stance. And maybe you think that is not important, but for me, I liked all those abilities. I like to give orders to my men to brace for impact. In past Total War games, you would have epic siege battles with big maps, and you would choose what side to attack from, and you could move around before the attack for how much you wanted, because you knew that the archers on the wall's defense towers would have a certain range, and as long as you were out of that range, you could just chill and think about how to approach the situation. Now the range of those defense towers is infinite, so they start shooting at you as soon as you press start battle. On top of that, the maps are very small and you can only attack from one side in most cases. It all just feels like a rushed arcade game now. The battles are so short in comparison to previous titles. Well, this decision was taken in Rome too, but you can see how the game is transforming more and more to fit in this age of fast food products and attention span suffering consumers. The game seems to be the opposite of an evolution in many of its core aspects. For example, when you take over a small town which is unprotected by walls, there is no town. You just fight against that town's garrison on a random map. In past games, you could make use of the few units that you had and make choke points in defensive formation, which in many cases offer you the chance to successfully prevent the taking over of your town. But now, your small army is placed on an open field to defend against larger armies where it will have no chance of saving the day. The diplomacy is screwed too. After the Chaos invasion has been defeated, you will start to see that your relations with all the other factions are going to deteriorate, and that is contrary to all ethical logics. The world and all the factions in it are alive because of you destroying the incoming hordes of chaos, so it would be logical that at least some factions in the game would be grateful for that. It is completely immersion breaking to see that no one really cares of your heroic acts, and in fact hate you for stupid reasons such as the Confederation penalty or the Great Power penalty. Alright, maybe the existence of those penalties are justified, but create another mechanic that gives you positive diplomacy points for exterminating the Chaos invasion, and not just a few points for committing actions against Chaos. As it is now, it completely shows the lack of game testing or care if their mechanics work or not, or even if they make sense. If you play with your friend in a co-op campaign as the Arguilon and your friend plays as the Wood Elves, despite being the same race, you will notice how your friend significantly has more advantages because you will have all the positive effects from the Oak of Ages, and you won't. You will suffer immense public order penalties that cannot be fixed, and you will forever have to pin down lords and heroes in your main cities to keep the public order balanced or defend it from raids. It's quite annoying as you will see how your friend takes over the world and you are just a passenger with a maximum of 2 armies. So after paying 17 euros on top of the regular price to get the Realm of the Wood Elves DLC, to be annoyed by such events does not feel very well. It really shows how Creative Assembly doesn't think of the ways we play the game and where we might end up. Another issue that people want to see fixed for years is the custom battle section, where people want to test their units, but it's impossible to test a unit of halberdiers, for example, versus a unit of swords, because the game forces you to add a lore to the battle, otherwise you can't click start. So in order for us to do this, we need to go and find game mechanic modifiers made for free by the community. Why do we need to fix the problems of a company that has a pretty big budget? Why isn't this company looking out for the complaints of their consumers? If you are a Warhammer lore fan, you will also be left with a bad taste in your mouth, as you will notice that you will be able to defeat Grimgor Ironhide with 1 spear unit and 1 archer unit. Grimgor also appears to not even touch Kolek Suneater in a one-on-one battle. Grimgor Ironhide was a legendary orc who had no problems ravaging entire armies of any race. Grimgor longs for the day that he may match his amazing skills with one of such equal measure as his own. He even defeated Archeon the Ever-Chosen, the Three-Eyed King and Lord of the End Times, in a one-on-one battle by kicking him in the balls. It seems that Creative Assembly decided that also Kolek Suneater would just be able to mop the floor with him. But that's no problem, because Kolek also mops the floor with Archeon, which lore-wise should be the most powerful, especially with all the items given to him by the gods in the end times. Interestingly, even Kolek Suneater can get wrecked by 1 spear unit and 1 hand gunner unit. Well, at least Grimgor Ironhide can beat Archeon, so at least that is lore friendly. And speaking of races, Total War Warhammer had only 4 races at release, with the 5th and most important race taken out and given only as a pre-order perk or as a DLC later. I am of course talking about Chaos. Why is it the most important race? Because Chaos are the big bad villains that everyone wants to beat. The Chaos invasion that seeks to end all other empires and plunge everyone in eternal darkness. Well, you won't have that unless you pay up. This was a clear marketing scheme and fortunately everyone was vocal about it, feedback from which even Creative Assembly woke up and recognized that it will be taken in consideration for future games. It was kind of a passive response though, because they declined that they removed content from the game to sell it later, so ultimately it's a matter of trust. Other vital races that are sold as DLC are the Elves and the Beastmen. So right now, if you were to buy the game with all the vital races DLCs, you would reach the most attractive price of 102 euros, which is around 116 US dollars. And I'm telling you right now that without these DLCs the game feels sort of empty, so you will have to get them if you want to play this game. This game in its default vanilla mode feels like a house without a roof. I mean, you will only have 4 races and no big boss to defeat. But is it worth it to pay 102 euros for a sort of complete game? I am actually more nostalgic to the games of the past, which took their time to make everything before they were released, when games were not rushed in 1 year of development to fit in the fast food culture conveyor belt. In those times you had the game released, people would play it for a long while, and only after that long while an expansion pack would appear with a new story and new characters. Nowadays everything is rushed. We barely played Total War Warhammer for a year, and already we will switch to Total War Warhammer 2 this September. It's almost as if they plan out how boring their poorly developed game will be and already know when it will expire as a product to come in with a new product but with the same problems. It's okay that beautiful cinematics will hype everyone to buy it. Old beer is bad, everyone. Buy our new beer. New beer is better. But of course, it won't. And the cycle will repeat and the game will never truly evolve. And what is it with these beautiful intro cinematics, mid-game chaos cinematics, and no conclusion endgame cinematics? After all your campaign struggles and epic battles, after crushing down the last Chaos Lord, you expect an end cinematic. Some type of reward, and it never comes. You'll only get an information event box. I mean, I would be all down with it if we didn't have any cinematics in the first place. But we do, so I expect something at the end. But it's not there. I would suggest to Creative Assembly to stop making cinematics in the first place and instead put that money in the game mechanics development. Why do we live in a world where all the big companies are selling us unfinished and poorly tested video games? And those Twitch streamers are all so excited about playing these games, it's like they drink the Kool-Aid. But we all know the truth. Everyone just fakes positivity to get views and money. However, we should consider the negative effects that this charade has on the products that we get. Too few are the critics, and what was once a landscape for innovation and skill has now become the same as dumbed down as everything else in this zombie land. Movies, music, games, and now even YouTube channels are all the same. Everyone is just riding a consumption wave. Yearly, monthly, daily content. Too bad that this content is just content, with no actual substance. We are seen as a pool of compliant consumers and we are preyed upon by snake oil salesmen. This, my friends, is what they don't tell you. Thanks for watching. This is Games Exposed, signing out.
Hang on a second. I've kind of forgotten about what I was supposed to be doing here. What does this do? What does that do? Huh? The attic? What am I looking at?